You've read the title. Here's why the 30% cut is great. I'm ISkyler. Let's get started. Now, yes, this is sparked by Apple vs. Fortnite, but I'm not talking about that here. I have way too many thoughts about that. I have to get them all down. Alright, so just so we're clear here, here's what my point is. I'm arguing that the 30% cut that Apple takes is good in theory, but in practice there are definitely some issues with it. So let's talk about how this cut is set to work in Apple's guidelines. It says they take a 30% cut on every single purchase. Any app purchase, 30% cut. And on any in-app purchase, to take a 30% cut as well. Except for subscriptions, where they take a 30% cut the first year, and for all subsequent years, it's a 15% cut. Here's where it gets a little confusing. Apps are required to use Apple's payment platform. That's how they take the 30% cut. That is, unless they fall under one of their exceptions. Exception number one is if they sell physical product. If an app sells physical product, they can use their own payment processor, so no 30% cut. That is something that's not normally allowed. And exception number two is if an app is a, quote, reader app. That means they're an app that focuses on content consumption and aggregates content together, like video or audio streaming. These apps don't have to have an option to sign up at all in the app, which means no 30% cut for them, and this is again something that is not normally allowed on the App Store. If you still don't get it, here are a few quick examples. Target lets you buy stuff from them in their app, usually physical product. So they don't pay a 30% cut, they use their own payment processor. Netflix sells a subscription to a service where they aggregate video content for consumption. So they have no option to sign up in the app. You may have noticed this before, so no 30% cut. Candy Crush sells you some gold to buy in-game stuff, so they use Apple's platform and they pay the 30% cut. Now, here's the basic theory behind this. If your app doesn't pay the cut, that's because you have to pay to make your product every single time, or there's a continual maintenance cost. Like Netflix, they pay to license content to put in the app. Or Target, who sells a physical product, they have to pay for the physical product every time. Apps that do pay for the cut, though, aren't like this. They pay to make something once and redistribute it. Like Fortnite, which I said I wouldn't mention, but they pay to make skins and then they just duplicate them for free and people buy them. So they pay Apple a 30% cut. I'll talk about the issues later, but now that you have an above average understanding of the 30% cut, congratulations by the way, let's get into my argument. So something that you just have to accept for my argument to work is that Apple is a company pursuing money, income. That is what they will want. They're gonna want money. I mean, who doesn't? So that's their goal. Since Apple will find a way to make profit, if it can't be from the 30%, it'll probably be from you. This goes back to that saying that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, which basically means that if you're not paying for something, you're instead paying with your data or for advertising, which is basically just the business of data. And Apple excels in this area. With Apple, you're usually not the product. You're usually paying for something that is the product. Apple's a very privacy-focused company. So when you pay a lot for the iPhone, you are paying for the phone, but you're also paying for things like the OS and the App Store. But there is more money to be made from developers, and Apple could take that money, or they could go the route of data. They could sell either your data or developers' data, or likely both. But Apple doesn't. They take a different approach. They take money from you when you buy the phone, and the developers through the 30% cut, instead of taking data and selling data. Probably because they believe this is the right thing to do, but also mostly because this privacy focus brings them more customers and thus more money. It's part of their business. And they can afford to do this, leave the data money on the table, because it brings them those customers and because they take money from the 30% cut. And in this world of free-to-play and ad-based games, this method of taking money, it may seem strange to some because many apps are just in the data business. These are free apps like Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. And if they're all free, then why can't Apple things be free too? Apple isn't free because nothing is free. YouTube isn't free, free Spotify isn't free, and Facebook sure as heck ain't free. You're paying with the data. On Apple though, you pay with money. That's the difference. The App Store is this little paradise where you aren't the product, the App Store is the product. That is until you download an app and it become the product again. But for the App Store to stay this way, Apple needs the 30% cut. Now, Apple also deserves a cut because they give a lot of value to developers, and I mean a lot. Developers do pay a $100 fee every year to Apple, I'm aware of that, but they get way more value than that from Apple, especially if they're bigger apps like Facebook or Google. So let's take it on the top and we'll pretend that you're an Apple developer here. You get access to Apple's platform, which they have been working on and building up for longer than Quibi was cool. Well, that's a bad example. For a long time, you get access to developer tools, which are technically free, but remember, nothing is free. Someone is paying for them, developers are paying for them. And there's a lot of developer tools. There's things like Xcode for writing code, TestFlight for testing code, and a freaking programming language called Swift, if you're wondering. You also get access to millions of customers from iOS and the App Store who trust the App Store and are willing to go there to get apps. Not only that, but Apple also promotes apps. If you haven't noticed, on the Today page, there's lots of different apps there that Apple thinks are good or noteworthy for some reason, and they put them up there. Sometimes even Fortnite has been up there. They also host all the information about the app updates, and the app itself for you. They kind of handle customer service, but not really, and they have a payment processor, which is good for a lot of people, but it's also how they take that 30% cut, so yeah. And you can't get any of that for free because the App Store is not a public service. It's Apple's private business that they operate. Now, to help explain this point and hopefully captivate the audience, I have crafted an analogy here. Let's pretend that you, the app, are a store, and the App Store is a mall. So think about that with me. The mall provides you with customers, and maybe you already had some. That's great. They can come through the mall, and that benefits the mall. But it also benefits you a lot from all of the people going to other stores in the mall who are there to see your store as well. The mall also gives you a very nice space for your store with electric, water, probably heating and cooling, and possibly security guards, which is really helpful. And obviously you have to pay for this. They're not going to give it to you for free, so you rent this space. But let's say you get bigger. You have too much product and people coming in for your size of your store. So what do you have to do? You have to rent more space. And no, they don't give it to you for free. You pay more because you're bigger now and you're taking up more space. Then you move on. You have to go into different malls and different places, and you have to pay more in rent because you're growing. So your costs get bigger and you pay more to the mall. Now, maybe eventually you think you're big enough. You want to go out and build your own space, your own place. Well, this isn't easy. It requires a lot. You have to pay for your own space, either build it or buy it, or, rent a space. And then you have to work with that space to make it fit you. You have to attract your own customers. You don't have the help of the mall anymore. There's a lot more work to this. And if we connect it back to Apple, this is what Apple provides. They provide the customers, they provide resources, they provide a lot of good things to help developers, and they pay for that. Then as their app gets bigger, they pay more. That's how the cut works. Just as the store has the option to leave the mall, developers have the option to leave Apple. It may be harder, but it's an option. Basically what I'm saying is Apple provides a lot of value to devs, and this is what they pay for in the 30% cut. Another reason they need a cut, and such a large one too, is that most apps pay Apple nothing. Apple puts them on the App Store, hosts their app for nothing. Here are some facts. 84% of apps on the App Store are free, meaning they pay Apple no cut, zero. Yet they're still on the App Store and benefiting from Apple's platform. Now, some of those apps have ads in them. The developers take all the revenue from those ads. None goes to Apple. Some more of these apps are reader apps, or they sell physical goods, and Apple also takes no income from that. None. They take none. And because most apps are getting all that Apple gives for free-ish, Apple needs to make their income from somewhere. So they have to take that 30% cut from other apps. This explains why they have to take such a big cut of 30%. Although, is 30% really that big when many other platforms also take 30%, and YouTube is going to take 45% of the revenue from this video? So Apple needs 30% of the income from apps to keep the App Store growing and running and take money for themselves, because 84% of the apps don't earn them any money at all. Now, the biggest counterargument to this seems to be that people think they need to be on Apple's platform. But the iPhone itself is not a category of device. The category is smartphones, and if you don't like the way the App Store is, you don't need to be on it. There are many other options. It's not just iPhone versus Android. It's iPhone versus Samsung versus Huawei versus Xiaomi versus Oppo versus Vivo versus Moto versus LG versus OnePlus versus Razer versus Essentials versus Asus versus HTC versus Google, and I'll stop there, but there's way more. Now, the OS really is just Apple versus Google, but Android is completely open. Not always the new features are there, but it's open. Anyone can build on it and make their own Android OS. So you have the option to make your own phone or store or OS. I mean, some of those you have to do on Android, but these are all things that are possible, and you don't need to be on the iPhone. And now, if you say, but you need the customers from Apple's platform, well, that is why you pay 30%. You can't get those customers for free. That's what you pay for. If you say you need to be on the iPhone for what it provides, then you need to pay for what you're getting. Those things don't come free or cheap. Now, for the one person left watching, I'll finally get to the issues here, because there really are issues. It's not a perfect system. Let's start with big companies working to get their own deals, aka Amazon's deal. Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, and Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, met together over email, so they didn't really meet together, but they met together to discuss something. This was when Amazon Prime was not on the App Store at all. So they were talking about how they could get it on there. Apple made some requests. They wanted Amazon to implement some features, like working with Siri, working with the TV app, things like that. But Amazon had requests too. They wanted a 15% cut instead of a 30% cut. And they got this. That's why Amazon Prime Video is on the App Store today. Apple takes a 15% cut from them. Now, this cut was on Amazon Prime subscriptions. The interesting thing here is technically Prime Video is a reader app, so they wouldn't need to have an option to sign in or pay any cut to Apple. But I'm guessing they wanted this. They wanted users to have the experience of signing up and paying for it in the app. So they added this, but under the condition that they only paid 15% to Apple. So Amazon got a special deal. Why? Because they are huge and they got to talk to Apple. They had leverage. They could meet with them and negotiate. But on the other end, there's small apps like Floatplane. That's the Linus Tech Tips streaming site full of tech tips and other stuff. And they're stuck in a weird situation. They're getting denied access to the App Store. They have an app fully built that follows in the footsteps of apps like Netflix and Spotify that don't have to pay the 30% cut because they're reader apps. But Floatplane is being treated as if it isn't a reader app. Apple is saying that they should add an in-app purchase with this subscription, but they have to pay to curate this content. They cannot afford a cut being taken from them, and this is hurting them, and this just isn't right. So in theory, the 30% cut should work, but there's a fairness issue. Big companies getting deals, small companies being bullied and pushed around. And so maybe the solution for the big companies is making it standard. Start at 30% when you're small. When you get bigger, cut it to 20% and then 15%. That way all apps are living in the same standards. As all apps get bigger, they will all have to pay a less of a cut. That would make things much more clear and standardized and fair to all of the apps on the App Store. Now, for the small apps, Apple really just has to stop bullying small companies, because both Tim Apple and Apple have said that Apple treats all developers the same, and that's just not true. And therein lies the issue, not with the 30% cut. And that's the video. All right, finally. Thanks for watching. Bye.